After polling my community, they chose for me to focus on action games. I had a few picked out. The first two may be a little controversial when I say the label as action, but we'll go with it. Rover's Tale is an upcoming game from Team 17, the publisher of Placid Plastic Duck Simulator, Dredge, and the Blasphemous series. It is a mix of sci-fi, Metroidvania, and creature collector, which I will get into more details later. You play as a rover who has lost its memory after landing on a planet. You receive an SOS alert, meaning that a human needs your assistance. You find them locked in an escape pod that has crashed, where the only button to open the door to leave is outside of the pod. Not convenient for the unnamed human. You name your rover at the beginning of the game. I named him a dog that my father had for a long time. Haas unfortunately had to be put down due to age and declining health, so I named my rover in memory of him. Side note, you'll notice the hovering tutorial button to the left of the rover. Luckily it disappeared once it got going into the home base, but it might be something that the developer needs to patch before the full release. I named it Haas because the idea of the rovers is that they are extended lives of real dogs in the game's universe. So it is kind of like families wanting to keep their dog in mind and for a future life, and they are then put into the minds of rovers. Once you get into the base, the human tells you that there are alien creatures in the area, and you need to bring some back. This is where the creature collecting and the Metroidvania come into play. You catch these aliens, and that gives you new abilities to explore new parts of the world. To sum it all up, the game is a nice introduction to many genres for kids. It has isometric driving, no combat, creature collecting, and Metroidvania exploration. The dog-adjacent theme is live enough for kids and pet lovers. Another rover was introduced that had floppy ears like some dogs have. All in all, it's a fun time that parents should keep an eye out for kids. Funny enough, the next action game I got to playtest is Folder Dungeon, published by Two Left Thumbs. It is a roguelite dungeon crawler, but the action is made up through a PC operating system. As said in the title, you navigate through different folders that act as rooms throughout the dungeon. In terms of the design, the fictional OS of Folder Dungeon feels pretty accurate to what you come to expect from navigating folders. I have a traditional office job IRL, so navigating through those folders, using the back arrows to go back into prior folders, and a map that allows you to see all the explored folders feels right at home compared to what I do for a living. Compared to this traditional dungeon crawl games, it has a lot of the same bones. You have power, defense, luck, and magic as stats that you have to better in what you expect with familiar fantasy games. What isn't like those fantasy games is the visuals. Just the basic colors that the game has, you have two primary tones that you don't see in traditional dungeon crawlers, orange and green. When you have it up on screen, it is so distinct compared to it. Quite frankly, there's nothing else on the market other than Time to Strike by Ravert, the developer of both it and Folder Dungeon. The big thing that makes Folder Dungeon stand out among action games is how chill the game is. Hence why I said action in quotes when I started talking about it. The game is all about building synergies when you do basic actions like attack, be attacked, heal, etc. Say you get an item that says 50% chance to heal you for 3 when you attack. Now you get some loot after a fight. There's some good options, but you see one that says attack again after you heal. So imagine the loop you have built off that synergy. Note, this is just a made up example, but one where the types of combos you can build are obvious. For a game all about descending through a dungeon, I wanted to go back to it, especially if it is right before bed. The game has a cozy feel for slaying the monsters. And that really is kind of odd whenever you're talking about an action game, hence the quotes. And now, for the only true action game in the episode. I will be talking about a AAA game, something I rarely do on this channel and only the second time in this series, and funny enough, it comes from the same developer, Square Enix. I'm talking about their upcoming game, The Adventures of Elliot, The Millennium Tales. It is the newest game from the creators of Bravely Default and the Octopath Traveler series, which I have played neither before. Even before I knew that, I could tell it was. It uses the same pixelized characters, but 3D environments that Octopath is known for. The Adventure of Elliot sees you playing as Elliot. What a surprise. Who is an adventure? Also no surprise there. I thought his naming was a little odd, but he was named in relation to a tree he was found around as a baby with no parents. He was raised in an orphanage, which is why he is so willing to help those in need, even if it means his pay is minimal. You meet his friend Eugene in some opening cutscenes, who recommends him to the king to explore some newly discovered ruins. Minister Calfried, a man who part of the king's council, wants to send in a unit of military to fight and take what they find, but the king is hesitant to do so. His daughter Hyria is able to protect the kingdom through magic, and the king wants to see less put on her shoulders, so he's willing to meet Elliot and decides to send him out into the ruins. Focusing more on the gameplay instead of the story, it plays a lot like the 2D Zelda. You'll be hearing more comparisons to Zelda more, as it is an apparent of influence. Unlike most Square games, combat is real-time instead of turn-based. From the demo, it is fairly basic, like you come to expect from something early on. You swing your sword to attack, use your secondary that you get a little later, and block incoming attacks with a shield. All stuff you come to expect. Where the comparisons to Zelda, particularly 3D Zeldas, are here in a negative light. Here you joins your adventure as a presence in the bottom left of the screen. She isn't present physically with Elliot, but she acts like the fairies in Zelda, particularly Navi. And if you're having some PTSD moments when I bring up the name Navi, that comparison is supposed to make you think of the negative aspects. Navi wants to talk all the time in Ocarina of Time. Listen! Hey! And I know she doesn't repeat the same two words constantly, but my word, Hyria wants to let you know everything obvious to you. Maybe you should use your shield more. Maybe you should use your shield more. Look, princess, I know. It was bad enough I paused the game to see if there was a way to turn down the amount she would shout at my mistakes. Unfortunately, no toggle or gauge. I like some aspects of the game, but Hyria was not my biggest complaint of the demo. The biggest thing I have to mention is the slowdown. When you move about in the open world, there is slowdown as the game loads up enemies, scenery, and even staircases. I had played about 15 minutes and the slowdown was so bad I stopped playing the demo. Luckily, I decided to boot it back up. It wasn't near as bad as the second time. It was still a thing, and the Steam page didn't mention any patches for the demo, so maybe it was something in the early game that works itself out as you play. But it's one thing for you that are looking to buy it, to watch out in early reviewers who are just gonna buy it first thing. One thing that I personally was kind of iffy on was the story. Like Dragon Quest VII, I thought the intro into the game was fairly usual fantasy storytelling. Maybe it's just the expected thing from Square Enix, but I wanted the story to do a little more. Maybe it does hours into it, but I don't foresee myself finding out. $60 for a game is out of my range for paying for a game. Expedition 33 is a more reasonable price of $50, and even I waited for sale when I got it last year. For those looking forward to The Adventures of Elliot, just wanted to give you some things that I noticed in the demo, but you can try for yourself before the full release on June 18th.